I will say something.
Yes, please.
I get the huge snake over my head, like this, like Shiva image during the meditation. So
Mm-hmm.
I was able just to look at it without any connections. But should I think about it as a Shiva or just let it be and don't even connect to anything? It's kind of nice to to have it as a direction to to
Mm-hmm.
what is it like, what is the clearance, because Shiva is a clearance, or just leave it alone.
Good. What do you think I'm going to say?
You'll say leave it alone, but
Uh,
I would like to follow the, the excitement of, something like that appear. It's kind of
uh-huh.
cool.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
you
nice
can do it.
to enjoy
You
it,
can,
but you will say leave it alone.
you can, yeah. When in doubt, leave it alone. Well, yeah, that's generally a good, that's a pretty good guideline in or out of meditation. I can think back on a number of times I wish there'd been someone around to say that. There probably was, but I wasn't listening. Um, but yeah, we never want to be in a hurry to interpret the things that come up in meditation. We don't want to put them into uh, we don't want to fit them into our concepts, because what's happening to us in our meditation is bigger than any concept we have. So if we try to fit it into our concepts, we're squeezing it into a box that may be smaller than what it is. Now, if you have associations like that, um, uh, and to some degree it feels like, oh yeah, gee, feels like Lord Shiva and his wonderful power of dissolving all the obscurations and obstructions, clearing things away. And if you have some association like that and you want to enjoy that, great. And another time it's like, oh geez, this just feels like you know whatever, feels like Jesus, feels like the Blessed Virgin raining down their blessings on me, whatever it is. Yeah, that's great, I guess. Enjoy, but I would say don't get carried away, and don't get too set on it, because tomorrow or next week something else is going to happen. Don't be in a hurry to put the final word on anything that happens in the meditation, and on the stuff. You can get very excited. I know I can, about my what I see is my insights into, okay, what's happening now here in my growth in the world, and oh, here's this revelation, oh, here's this thing that, oh, how did I not see this thing that I've been carrying around from my childhood? Now I see, now I've got it all figured out, right? But and it's great. Yeah, we have to do a certain amount of that, but just not try to ever make it final. There's a story about the poet Allen Ginsberg, who, he was in his sitting in a little cold water apartment in Harlem, I think. This is in 1950 something. And I don't remember if he was, meditating at that point, or, tripping on mescaline or whatever he was doing. Somehow he was sitting in his apartment and he heard the voice of William Blake. He heard the voice of the poet William Blake reciting, "Ah, sunflower, weary of time, who countest the steps of the sun." Most of you know by now that's a favorite of mine. To me, that poem's it. That poem tells the whole story. Um, so great, wonderful, wonderful experience. But then Ginsberg got um, very kind of stuck on the idea of, oh, what was this experience? Why did this happen to me? This thing seemed so special to him, and I think along with it, I suspect there was some sense of, well, then, if this special thing happened to me, then I must be the special person that it happened to. See, that's the next pitfall that we can fall into. Uh, and for the next several years, every uh, Ginsburg just went around asking people. He traveled to India and he met a lot of holy men and women there. And later on, he was with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, the first Tibetan Lama to teach full time in the U.S. out in Boulder. And he just kept asking, "What's the meaning of it? What's the significance?" And finally, it just dropped away. It's not that anyone ever gave him any kind of final answer. What he realized was that it was just not an urgent question in the way that he had thought of it. It just, it was whatever it was, and um, it had its usefulness for him at a certain time. And I think that's a healthy way to regard all this stuff. It has its usefulness for us at a certain time, including sometimes often people will have an experience where they really feel like, oh man, now I got it. I mean, Anna, we had this wonderful discussion with you one or two meetings back. And it's just like, this is it. It's all become clear. It's all I've fulfilled the purpose of all this Dharma practice, right? Um, I was at a retreat some years back with a teacher from Jamaica that I used to spend time with, Muji, and someone started telling this whole story of how, it was after all my years of meditation and self-inquiry, and then one day it just broke wide open, and it was just, everything was fine and everything was bliss and everything was easy, and all my questions were evaporated, and everything was obvious. They said, and this went on for whatever they said, 3 months. And then, and at that point, Muji stopped him and he said, we could compile a big book of people's stories here, and we would call the book "And Then." So, so that happens also. But even when that happens, um, I remember someone, I don't remember the details now, but they were describing to Muji some, the particular kind of flavor of the way this opening had happened for them, but just was so kind of blissful and spectacular, and all of that, and then it went away, and they had just been kind of like in mourning for this thing that had gone away. They had been in mourning for it for months, and he said to them, it had its usefulness for you at that time. If if it comes, it's time for it to come. If it goes, it's time for it to go. You know, how many people go through all of life and never have anything like that happen to them? And that brings us back again to the, we were talking one or two meetings back about the famous meditation instruction from Ramana, which, as I said, is also a good instruction for living and for dying. Let what comes come, let what goes go, see what remains. And see what remains. See what remains, not try to figure out what remains, not try to interpret what remains. Just see. Allow it to present itself. That which presents itself is what we call a present. It's a gift. It's not up to us to build it, to wrap it. We just, graciously receive it. Okay.